Roger, what's Sandberg's legacy in your mind?
So from a shareholder point of view, David, she did magnificently. I mean, in a world where executives are compensated based on what they do for shareholders, Facebook was a extraordinary stock under Sheryl Sandberg's reign. I mean, the company, when she got there, had no business model, and it found one, and she grew that magnificently. At the same time, the company did enormous harm, and Sheryl did nothing to prevent that. And I do think she had the power to cause the company to behave in a more socially constructive way than it did, but she did not exercise that. And I think as a consequence, she's going to have a legacy that's going to have this very positive thing for investors and a very negative thing for everyone else.
All right, so fair to say good for shareholders, bad for society. Roger, what would you have had her do? And if she had, would it have hurt the shareholder side of that equation?
Well, indisputably, what Facebook needed to do to protect democracy, public health, and people's right to make their own choices would have had a very significant effect on earnings. So she was faced with a very difficult challenge if your goal is to optimize for shareholder value. At the same time, she had a lot of opportunities along the way to do things differently. The company, for example, when it was in Myanmar and it was accused by the United Nations of facilitating an ethnic cleansing, the company could easily have changed its strategy, not just in Myanmar, but in other countries where it did not have any local presence, where it did not have language skills, did not know the culture. It could easily have decided that they did not want to do harm because there was no economic impact of that. In the United States, obviously, there were a lot of things they could have done to restrain the disinformation related to COVID, to restrain the recruiting of QAnon that led to Stop the Steal and then the insurrection. There are a lot of things that as chief operating officer she could have done, but she chose not to. And I think she chose not to very explicitly because doing so would have hurt earnings.
Which I think will be relevant if she ever goes into politics Wednesday. We don't know exactly what she's up to. But Roger, to the stock, because when this news broke, the stock actually fell 4%. I was sort of surprised to see that sharp of a reaction. It's up a little bit this morning. What do you think it means internally for Facebook's operations and for investors, given she presided over such a strong period of the Facebook growth?
Yeah, I believe that Sheryl Sandberg is an extraordinarily talented executive, particularly with respect to the domain of growing a sales force. I mean, what Facebook did over the last 10 years really is extraordinary. At the same time, she's being replaced by somebody who comes directly out of the part of Facebook that's responsible for increasing the engagement of the audience. There's just no way to overstate the risk of that a person coming from that world is not somebody whose first regard is the interests of society. It's somebody who's there to squeeze the last penny out of the users that are using the product. And I do believe that from a shareholder point of view, that is likely to lead to more of the same, which is to say they're going to earn as much money as they can from the business, but at the same time, there's no reason to expect the company to be a better corporate citizen than it has been in recent.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.